no matter what industry that you're in, you have to learn and do the job before you actually become an owner of the job. It's really important that they still have to be working for somebody to learn from somebody. They can do it in school, but they're going to learn a lot more on property inside a restaurant.
You're with The Capitalist Sage, a twice-a-month podcast that seeks out entrepreneurs and experts that speak to the real-world life of doing business for their sage advice. Now, with your hosts, Karl Barham and Rico Figliolini.
Welcome to The Capitalist Sage podcast. We're here to bring you advice and tips from seasoned pros and experts to help you improve your business. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisors, and my co-host is Rico Figliolini with Mighty Rockets Digital Marketing and the publisher of the Petrie Corner magazine. How you doing, Rico?
Hey, Karl. Good, thanks.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about our sponsors today?
Sure. Let's go right into it. Our lead sponsor I want to thank is Hargrave Fiber. They're a major company in the Southeast that handles fiber optics, internet connection at the speeds you need. And also because they're right in the community, they're not your cable guy, right? You could call them up. They'll be right out there. They're very attentive to their client needs, whether you're a small business or you're a large enterprise business, whether your employees are working from home or home and office, they're providing all the smart office tools that you need to be able to do the work that your company needs to be able to get sales done. So check them out. They're hargravefiber.com, or you can go to hargrave.com/business and check them out because they have a $1,000 Visa gift card going promotion, and you may be one of those if you hook up with them. So check them out. Thank you to Hargrave Fiber.
Thank you, Hargrave, for continuing to sponsor all of the podcasts here. Yep. Today, I'm excited to bring back a guest that joined us when we started this, if you remember, Cliff Bramble, founder and owner of Hungry Hospitality here in Gwinnett County. He's here to talk a little bit about his perspective and experience and thoughts on business, small business, in particular restaurant. 2020 has been a tough year for so many businesses. And in particular, you'll see a lot of restaurant business being impacted. But I'll tell you, being able to understand the history and what makes things work is a great conversation to just show how we could support small business and maybe even talk a little bit about what it's going to look like post-COVID. So, Cliff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, many people might already know you and so on, but I'd love for you to share your background with folks so they can understand the many things that you've done in your career.
Absolutely. So I live in Petrie Corners, so I'm around here quite frequently. I had the Noble Finn going for quite some time until COVID came in. So I've been in the restaurant business for many years. I co-founded Rathbun's Restaurants many years ago. And in the meantime, after that, I ended up opening up Noble Finn. And now I just started a new company called Hungry Hospitality because Noble Finn, I had to close it, which isn't a good thing. But we had to do what we had to do to start with COVID. But being in the restaurant business and also real estate and also investing, I've been working with businesses for many years, and I really enjoy it. It's always a fun thing to do.
Well, that's what we're here to talk to is small business owners. We know it could be lonely owning a small business, and having others to be able to share ideas with, talk to, get ideas from, we know is very helpful. And so why don't we jump right in? And I'm curious, when you've been all your experience in a restaurant, what are some of the things that attracted you and many people to the restaurant business from a business perspective? Why do you think people get into that?
Well, there's a lot of glory in restaurants. A lot of people love to be in it. There's many people that will say, hey, I'd love to own a restaurant. I don't know about right now, but over the years, they always have. But there's always a lot of excitement. There's a lot of adrenaline that's going on. You're around some nice people all the time. You're around people all the time. And some people think it's just an excitement thing all the time. You're always excited. There's always something going on. And although there is, you still have to run the business with the HR and the hiring and all the other aspects that go into it. But the restaurant industry, it will come back. It's having a challenge right now, but it will come back, and there'll be just as many people in it.
Yeah, over the years, I think one of the things is I always associate a restaurant with creating memories. People get engaged. They have family feast, birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day. And no matter what is happening in the economy or the world, people are going to want to celebrate with other people. They're going to do it over food. And so we know that that's going to sustain over the long term. What are some of the things that people, when you think about restaurant, they don't know about the restaurant industry that you think they should for folks that have been in it for a while?
Well, a lot of people people think it's a fun industry. Number one, you have to be there. When you open up a restaurant, you really have to be there most of the time, especially if you're independent. If you're working with 5 and 6 other restaurant groups, or you own it and you have the luxury of hiring people because you're a very profitable organization, you will have less time within the restaurant and more time operating the company because somebody still has to run the company. But the options is that people don't see the hard work, the sacrifices that go into owning a restaurant. If it's your kid's birthday and you own a restaurant and you're open and it's Friday night, you probably have to be there. So it just depends on what people's version and definition of fun and excitement is. But there's a lot of hard work that you have to be there all the time.
You know, I remember when we did a podcast not too long ago about your travels to Italy. And yeah, that was fun. I mean, you shared some pictures. You talked about the food and all that. Do you miss any of that? Do you miss being, I know it's only been a little while, but sometimes I feel like people leave a business and it doesn't take long for them to miss it, like a few days even. How does that feel?
It's interesting you mentioned that. Somebody asked me that the other day, and it was just yesterday, and he said, well, are you going to get back into it? And I said, listen, I've been doing this for about almost 40 years, and I'd love to say that I want to jump right into it, but I have to tell you, I'm having a good time not being in it right now. So, what you do realize is all of a sudden you realize all those things that you really couldn't do over the years and you missed, all of a sudden they're back at you. But you do miss the fun of the excitement on a nightly basis, meeting all the different people, because you do meet a lot of people in restaurants and you have a lot of friends in the restaurants or acquaintances. But the other thing you miss is you miss the good food. So, you cook at home all the time now.
Are you really? That's funny.
So I'm curious when all COVID-19 started to happen, where did you first hear that something was happening? How soon did you hear something was happening? What was your first thoughts and reaction to that?
Well, I'm involved in investments and financial side as well. And I started watching it in December, to be honest. And so in December, I really watched it. And in January, I became obsessed with it to a point where I was up at 3:30 in the morning reading news from other countries, from that all the way to the east or the west, wherever it was, that was already happening, and I was watching it. So for the month of January, I watched it, and I read a lot of information about it, and I kind of warned a few friends of mine. I said, if this comes over here, restaurant-wise, we may end up having a big problem. Now, I didn't know how big of a problem it was, but watching it escalate, I took a lot of screenshots basically when the John Hopkins first started tracking it. And there was 2 people. I have a screenshot with 2 people in the United States have it. And then it continued to go up and up and up. So, for me, I started watching it in January, really, really more so than December. But when I had over at Noble Finn, I did tell my staff in January, I advised them, I said, listen, guys, if this comes over here, it's going to affect everybody. So start saving your money. And actually quite a few of them thanked me later on. They said, man, I can't believe that, but we did save our money, and thank you very much. So I watched a lot of it in January, and then obviously in February when it started to pick up, it just continued. I think the financial markets, in my opinion, kind of ignored it in January. But, just paying attention to it, wondering what was going to happen on the hospitality side, it took a mind of its own, and obviously where we are now today.
Yeah, I remembered you actually being one of the first ones to talk about it. And, we would chat and you were starting to do that in early March, late February, early March. But I don't know that people really understood how long this would be around. And we all didn't know enough information about how we responded and how it mitigated. Remember the time there were countries that had a spike and then they got it under control, and everyone thought that that's what happens. But decisions and choices and behaviors and all these things played in, and we're a big country with a lot of complexity to it, 50 states and a lot of different approaches to tackling it. So when you knew that it was going to impact your business, I know there are things you can do generally. Is there anything looking back you'd advise the restaurant industry as a whole, or people that are leading large in the food and beverage space, things that a year ago, hindsight's always 2020, things that a year ago, things that could be done to prepare if something like this were to happen? What would be some of the things in the food and beverage space that good business people could have done?
Well, one of the most important parts, really, for me, was making sure you had enough cash flow for in a situation like this, for an emergency situation. And I've worked with my accountant, and it's very interesting making sure that you have enough cash flow for 3 or 4 months. And most people, we're all in the same boat. Most people in the United States only have 2 or 3 months worth of funds saved. In a restaurant, the same exact thing. You do have to treat it as a business, because that's exactly what it is first. The fun of the restaurant has to come second. But having the cash in bank and making sure that you have enough for emergency situation, honestly, it helped me tremendously this time. Now, obviously, you cannot predict what's going to happen, how far along this is going to go. But there still are, we're still in the pandemic. There's still restaurants that are having challenges, especially in different segments. So, when it comes down to it, in my opinion, no matter what business you're in, you always have to plan 2, 3, 4, 5 months worth of cash flow to make sure that you have that, because when you need it and you don't have it, you can't get it.
Let me ask you something. I don't think the restaurant business is immune to things, right? The listeria outbreaks, the salmonella outbreaks, those are common. Every day there's always a recall somewhere in the country for something, especially romaine lettuce. Right. So,
or lettuce.
Right. Well, romaine lettuce from Arizona, I guess, or wherever it comes from. It's like that one place, So you have all that going on. So, and then you have the pandemic on top of that, because you have the normal stuff like that. So do you see this coming back? I mean, they're talking about it coming back again. I mean, should restaurants start planning out for this type of thing beyond the money? How do you plan health-wise? How do you keep things clean? And, not that in a pandemic like this, it may not matter, I guess, the cleanliness, but, what do you see there?
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball. I really do. But, restaurants in general are clean. We clean them all the time. You have a cleaning crew, or you have an outside company who comes in and cleans it. So it really depends. But you still have to remain diligent on what you're doing, and you have to continue to train your staff that's there. Make sure the management is on guard. Make sure that everybody's paying attention, because what happened to me over at Noble Finn is really the reason why I ended up closing the first time in March, was because somebody walked in, and then they had a party of 10, but they came from out of town. They called up 2 days later and they said, "Hey, by the way, I think I may have COVID. You may have to tell all of your staff." So that was a real big eye-opener for me when I'm dealing with hotel guests from the Marriott locally here, and the international companies that are around Peachtree Corners and Gwinnett. That was a big eye-opener. So, keep being diligent about listening and watching what's going on, and listening to your staff, because your staff will tell you a lot of what's going on. But more importantly, you have to continue to remain diligent and clean, and make sure you're paying attention to everything around you. You can't just be paying attention to your 4 walls within that restaurant. You have to be paying attention to what's going on in the business world as well, because it does affect restaurants.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Early on, information was flowing from so many sources to help guide you on restaurant safety and protocol. What was the right source to listen to? How do you figure out who to pay attention to?
That goes right about now, too. We're still trying to figure it out. You know what? The Georgia Restaurant Association has a great page on COVID. So, any restaurant or individual or an employee of a restaurant or a hospitality field they can go onto the Georgia Restaurant Association webpage, and they have a great it's a webpage with all types of resources on it. So that was something that I really paid attention to because they were very keen on keeping that up to date on a daily basis. Even though every day something came out differently, they were very good at keeping their website up.
What did you find useful, the other resources that the association provided? I mean, obviously the restaurant industry is a bit different than other industries because of the employees and just the nature of sustainability and all that product. When it came to the CARE Act, to PPP, to loans, to payroll, when business is not happening, was that any of that useful to you? I mean, I know you did a lot for your employees. God knows. I think anyone that lives in Peachtree Corners knows that Cliff Bramble, Noble Finn, you really employed your employees as long as you could.
And the community.
Yeah. We did. Honestly, I mean, we did pay attention. When the CARES Act came out, I was very much aware of that coming out 4 or 5 weeks ahead of time with my fingers crossed because I told my staff the same exact thing. Hey, guys, if this comes in, I'll be able to help you guys for this much longer. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, I kept a lot of the staff on. I think 26 staff members on for the 9 weeks that we were closed, and they got their paycheck, and that was important to me because when we opened back up, every one of those employees was back there to work, which is a great feeling. So, yes, the other items that were out there and the people that, friends of mine in the business world also, from my banker to my accountant, we were all kind of talking about the same exact thing. So we all helped each other. And there was a lot of guys in the restaurant business that I spoke with as well. We had a few, what are they called? The Zoom meetings, right? We had a few of them, which were pretty cool because everybody really helped each other. And I think that's what the industry is really needing right now is people to help each other, being in the same industry.
Well, was it a little scary at one point when they were sort of changing the rules of the game a little bit? Like you had to spend it all in 8 weeks, and then you could spend it in 24 weeks. Maybe some of it's forgiven, maybe not some of it. The formula was changing. Was any of that scary to you?
You know what? Scary could be a word, but confusing is more the word. It was confusing. There's no question about it. I mean, you try to become an expert at this stuff because you're learning about it, but you're trying to learn as much as possible. And I have several email friends that would send me information. Hey, this is what's going on. My banker would send me information. I would go to treasury.org. I would go to all the different government websites and pull down the latest information. But man, confusing is the word because, one day you're going, wow, this is fantastic. And next day you're up and down. And honestly, you think you lose sleep when you have a restaurant. Go through COVID and own a restaurant. You'll really be losing sleep. And that's probably with any business too.
Right. I wondered when you reopened and people started coming back, what were some of the response the community gave as people started going back out to restaurants and as you walked around town? What was your general sense and feel of how people felt about it?
We opened back up May 25th. It was 8 weeks after we had first closed. And I think we were one of the earlier ones that we opened up. But I felt at that time it was probably a good time because I didn't know how long this was going to, continue. But the people who came in, I have to tell you, we had a very, very supportive clientele. And a lot of the people who had frequented the restaurant over the years, they were the first ones back. Yes, there were some people that came in with masks. Yes, at the very beginning. But we did everything that we possibly could to make the people feel comfortable. But when it comes down to it, the people who came in, they were very supportive. They were very happy that the restaurant was back open. They enjoyed the food, and they came back a couple times. But as the confusion set in, you saw less and less of them.
Yeah. I know people are happy now. If you fast forward to today, restaurants are open and people are going out and eat. Yes, the world's changed a little bit. There's a little bit more spacing and so on. But I'm looking in the future. There's a short term where, until vaccines are available and so on, we're going to school dealing with this. We're working dealing with this. We're living our lives dealing with this. What do you think the restaurant industry is going to look like over the near short term? And I'm going to ask you, what do you think it's going to look like a little bit further out? How does this change how business owners approach food service, delivery, in dining experience. How do you think this could change it? And any of it for the better?
The restaurant industry, I think right now is changing on a daily basis. But, we've gone through a lot of different changes in the last 6 months. Let's face it. We went from being like, for example, you got quick service, you got full service, you have fine dining, you have fast food. And what happened for me, for example, was, we went through the whole process of, okay, let's see if we can continue with the sales. So you started to go stuff immediately. And then from there, you started selling stuff online. And then people started ordering it online. But now you go into the future and all that stuff is still happening, whereas a lot of people are eating outside. But let's face it, it's 95 degrees outside. At nighttime, it's fine. I know a couple places that they set up their patio and outdoor front, and they look really, really cool. And people do dine in them. But the future-wise, you're looking at home delivery. You're looking at more chefs cooking at home, chefs from restaurants maybe doing meal preps, and that's already happening. There's also a lot of virtual cooking classes as well that's going on, where chefs or restaurant owners are doing the virtual cooking classes from their kitchen, and they're doing a Zoom cooking class basically. So the nice part is it's working and people are going with it. What's going on in a year from now, I don't know. There may be some consolidation, but there's also a lot of companies out there with some pretty deep pockets that are looking for good brands to purchase with great locations, because the restaurant industry, it's not going anywhere. It will consolidate. It will change, but it's going to come back sooner or later. It will come back. But we are dependent on the hotels, just like hotels are dependent on us. And I know in Petrie Corners there's still at least one hotel that I know of that is not open. But the business people in this area, the less traveling they do, it does provide a challenge for what's going to happen now or in the future as well.
I'm curious. In New York, I saw some areas of New York City shut down the streets, allow the restaurants to go out into the streets, where they get the advantage of spacing, and they're able to deliver a different experience. But also, do you think there's a future in figuring out a way to leverage outdoor space in eating for the short term? And then I'm sure, over time it'll go in there. Have you seen any innovations in that area?
Most of the cities and the towns have really eased the restrictions on the outdoor dining. I know Petrie Corners has. So that has helped tremendously. It's really up to the building departments, up to the coding, and also how long this is going to continue. Hopefully there's a vaccine where we can all say, okay, in 6 months, 8 months, this is all done, and people are back dining in air conditioning rather than sitting at 95 degrees.
Yeah.
Well, I think that this has shown us, though, that this can happen again, right? This is just, this can happen again. And it doesn't take long, right? Transatlantic flights, by the time anyone really knew what was going on, we were already deep into it.
Yes.
You were able to see it coming maybe, so were other people, but obviously some people ignored it. And it came and it slapped us in the face. It was really bad in Italy, and Greece, and some of the other countries in Europe. But like you were saying, things change, right? Yeah, I think there's more ghost kitchens going on now.
Absolutely.
Right? And to explain that to some people that don't know what a ghost kitchen is.
Yeah, what is a ghost kitchen?
Well, there's a place called Prep Atlanta over by Spaghetti Junction, which they have. I don't know how many. I'd like to say there's about 75 to 100 different 100 square feet. Some are 80 square feet kitchens, and I've been in two of them. One of my old chef has a food truck, and he took me into one of his places, and man, it was pretty cool. But basically, they're doing all the prep there, and then they basically will deliver it to somebody else. I know Elon Musk's brother is heavily involved. He raised only about $500 million to start these virtual kitchens around the United States. So the virtual kitchen, it could be something where you have a restaurant where Noble Finn used to be, for example, and have 4 or 5 different kitchens only in there. And basically you order everything online and you just go pick it up. So it remains to be seen, but I think that virtual kitchen definitely has a huge lifespan coming up to it.
Yeah. If you see what's going on with like Domino's Pizza, right? The pizza industry is really good at this. They were set because most of their stuff is delivered anyway, right? To a degree. So Domino's I think it's Domino's, right? There's no sit-in. It's all delivered, right? It's all curbside or pickup or delivery. You're seeing more of like what you said. And I'm seeing companies that are doing 4 different brands within a ghost kitchen. Like they own the whole thing, but they're doing 4. So they're pizzeria, Mexican, Chinese. They own all 4 brands, let's say, and they're in some hole-in-the-wall place that's conditioned for a kitchen, and they're selling, right? I mean,
delivery only.
Yeah, and then you said your chef started a food truck, right? So I'm seeing more of that. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what's interesting. He goes to neighborhoods too. He goes to different neighborhoods where, when all of a sudden, when this whole COVID came in, obviously the business parks had disappeared, or the parks are there, but the people weren't. Yeah. So he ended up going to neighborhoods where they would call him, and they'd have 40 or 50 people there, and he'd serve them on like a Tuesday night.
Wow. Yeah, we saw a few of those. Those are we ordered dinner when they would pick neighborhoods from different restaurants, and we thought that was fabulous. I've got a question that might be more technical, since one of the biggest costs for restaurants is the space, the real estate, the space you're in. Do you think this is going to have an impact on commercial real estate, being able to charge the same rates if you can't have as many people in a space? How do you think that's going to affect that part of the business model for restaurants?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, but you know what? When it comes down to the per square foot, the restaurants are going to move out, and restaurants live off of what your sales are per square foot and also what your rent is per square foot. And if you have a large restaurant and the rent is, $40 a square foot, in Georgia, in Atlanta, it's probably a lot less than other parts of the country. But you also have a sales forecast for that specific restaurant square footage. So knowing what your sales are going to be, or what they're forecasted, and compared to what they are, the rent will be, and it's especially if you only have 50% seating capacity, it's going to provide a challenge without a question. So there are going to be landlords out there trying to charge more rent. It depends on how bad somebody wants a location. If somebody wants to pay for it and they want to be in a restaurant, if they have 4,000 square feet and they need to do $600 a square foot, which is on the medium level, they really want to do $800. So that's $3.5 million in sales. But if they're paying a low $20 a square foot, that's great. But if they're paying $35, their occupancy costs are going to be way too high. So it's very important to pay attention before you go into it and know what your sales you think they're going to be. But with COVID, the next 6 months, we just don't know.
Right. Yeah. And I know with all the vacancies that are happening or projected to happen between retail, restaurants, and others, it's going to have an impact. I remember in December, most landlords were pushing price increase and lease updates. Some may still, it's all very local, so it depends on a particular plaza or a particular location. But if the model changes where you can't drive as much revenue, whether it's by people or the price you charge, you can't get that sales volume, don't you think that will force landlords to have to either face vacancy or build a model that allows, business owners to be successful and come to the table? Now, over time, like it happens every other time, prices will increase again. But for the short term, it's important that somehow that gets figured out.
Well, listen, we all know there's going to be a lot of retail space available within the next 6 months. It's already happening. Whether it's here in Atlanta, West Side, downtown, you go to Old Fourth Ward. I mean, there's so much happening right now. You look at Alpharetta. Alpharetta is, it continues to grow. Petrie Corner, there's buildings here, but there's also empty buildings as well. So the more of these companies that are not letting or telling their employees to stay home until June of 2021, it provides all of a sudden empty space. Now, they still have leases on them. Some of them, maybe they own the building, but it's all really dependent on whether they can work it out with the landlords. I got an email today from somebody who's closing a bunch of restaurants, and one of the main reasons was because they could not work out a solution with their landlords. So ultimately, the landlord is either going to have empty places until COVID is over, or there's going to be somebody else who walks in and says, hey, I have 5 brands and I want to put them in that place, maybe for a virtual kitchen. You just don't know.
That's going to be. So what are your thoughts on someone thinking of getting into the restaurant, just finished working at some restaurant, moving into the metro Atlanta area, Any advice to folks that might be looking to step into it?
You know what? If they're looking to get a job right now, you know what? There are a lot of jobs out there. People are looking for, restaurants are looking for people. You look in the suburbs right now, suburbs are pretty much doing better than in town because a lot of the in town, especially downtown, is reliant on the hotels, downtown Atlanta. But the suburbs right now are the places to really find a job because the suburbs are coming back a lot more quickly in the restaurant side. Not as much as a hotel, but definitely in the restaurant. It's coming back more quickly. So the jobs are out there. They'd have to look in the suburbs before they go in town.
And as for a career path for someone that wanted to own a restaurant, what types of positions and roles would you recommend someone craft if they wanted to build a career to be an owner of a restaurant one day?
Well, you know, if they want to be an owner of a restaurant right there one day, they could probably buy a lot right now.
But are they ready?
yeah, but they might not be ready. But you know what? It comes down to they have to continue to learn. They have to continue to work at another restaurant. They have to learn from somebody else who's doing that. And, you know, no matter what industry that you're in, you have to learn and do the job before you actually become an owner of the job or owner of the business. So if somebody wants to get into the chef position, they have to learn how to cook. If somebody wants to learn how to do the business side, they have to learn the front of the house stuff. So it's really important that they still have to be working for somebody to learn from somebody. They can do it in school, but they're going to learn a lot more on property inside a restaurant.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing some of your wisdom and experience navigating through not only just this crazy 2020, but an industry that already has its ups and downs and challenges, and you continue to be successful in all the things you do. Anything you have coming up? So what keeps you busy nowadays? What type of stuff you get yourself into?
Man, you know, I'll tell you what, I've been doing a lot of pivoting. You know, when we had Double Fin, we pivoted to go, then we pivoted to online and, you know, ended up closing that. But I started a new company called Hungry Hospitality, which it's my main focus now. So I'm working on that, and I'm working on these classes called audio business classes. They're really business classes that are online, and they'll be subscription basis. They'll be coming out probably sometime in October. And it's really geared to the hospitality industry, but also the business industry as well. So it'll be something a little different, but I think it'll allow people to learn 24/7 and basically download whatever they need. So it should be interesting.
Well, I know a lot of people that would be able to really use some of that wisdom to share.
Where can they find? What website can they go to? Where can they find you if they want?
Yeah, right now all my information is on hungryhospitality.com. Right now, that's the consulting side, and the consulting side is really working with restaurants, working with business owners, real estate people, realtors, and you know, a lot of people could use. They always say, "Man, I never knew this stuff." And you know, the nice part is if they want to learn how to open up a business, it's better to have somebody who has already done it than trying and making all those mistakes and costing them a lot of money when somebody can guide them to it and help them immediately.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. Well, Cliff, I want to thank you. Cliff Bramble with Hungry Hospitality, you know, local business leader. And I just want to thank you personally for all the things you did in the community, bread you were giving away during the time, just being a voice of the dough. Yeah.
How many pounds of dough?
I was making that in the back kitchen, having a good time.
You gave out like 400 pounds of dough or more.
It was I think it totaled almost 800 pounds of dough. But it was, you know, I mean, it was a good time. The people enjoyed it. And you know what? I think that the people needed something like that. And, you know, you have to do something like that, give back to the community because the local people are the ones that helped you out in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you. You're a great example for that, for the community, and continue to wish you all luck on some of your new endeavors. Well, for today, I want to thank everybody for joining the Capitalist Sage. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisors of Atlanta Peachtree. Our business is to help business owners figure out what comes next in life, whether they're looking to exit the business, sell, whether they're looking to acquire a business to grow through acquisition or through franchising. We help people realize those dreams. You can reach us at www.tworld.com/Atlanta Peachtree. Rico, what do you have coming up?
Sure. Well, I'm Rico Figliolini. I have MightyRockets.com, and we're a social media content creation company. But I also publish. I also publish Peachtree Corners magazine. So that's 6 times a year. Keeps me busy. Talk about passion. I love doing this stuff. I have great writers with me. We're working on the next issue right now. So part of that is Pets and Their People. We're going to be we're launching a giveaway next week on that. We're also doing, asking people to give us what they're thankful for. So we're hopefully accumulating 50 people and what they feel they're thankful for this year. Besides family and friends, we're all thankful for that. But what else are you thankful for? So we want to get a sense of what that is in Peachtree Corners. So we're curating that, and we're going to be putting that in the magazine. And we're also going to be doing a bunch of other things, including backyard retreats. So we're profiling 5 of those. There are really some great-looking backyard retreats that people can go to. There's one place, I forget how many acres it is, smack in the middle of Peachtree Corners, has its own grapevines and place to just hang out. It's kind of a neat place. So that's one of the places we're profiling. It's kind of neat. But we're doing all that. So, and these family podcasts that we're doing, which is great, Karl, because you're the heavy lifter. You've been scheduling everyone on these podcasts, which is kind of cool. And you're bringing in really good, interesting people. Cliff, this half hour was really, really good learning about you in the business. So all that. And we're fortunate to have Hargrave Fiber as a sponsor of these podcasts. So if anyone wants to find out a little bit more about what's going on in Peachtree Corners, or any of the podcasts we do, go to livinginpeachtreecorners.com and you'll be able to find out all sorts of things. So.
I want to mention one more thing as we wrap up today. It's great having folks like Cliff and other business owners local community, because I don't know if a lot of children get to see business owners. They go in, patron the business, but they don't know the people in the community that do it and some of these things. And so if this helps prepare the next generation to be great business owners, small business owners, I think it's going to drive the economy. So this is a joy for us to do. And we want folks to follow us on Facebook. On Facebook, is it Living in Peachtree Corners?
Well, it's Peachtree Corners Life on Facebook.
So on Facebook.
Like the page, right, and you get alerts for it. If you go to YouTube and you search Peachtree Corners Life, subscribe there, and you'll also get an alert, because we're doing these things live to YouTube simultaneously if we don't get dropped. So I think we went about 27 minutes before we got dropped, so the full version will be up after this.
Awesome. And then the website?
And Instagram as well. The website is livinginpeachtreecorners.com. And on Instagram, we're Capitalist Sage. So check it out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thanks, Cliff, again. Take care. Everyone have a great day, everyone.
This has been the Capitalist Sage with Karl Barham and Rico Figliolini, the twice-a-month podcast with entrepreneurs and business experts. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Want more? Visit our website at capitalistsagepodcast.com.